So yeah, hello everyone. Good morning. So from my side and from the ERAdata team side, this is our last workshop or tutorial event or webinar event of the project. In 2 years, 2 weeks from now on, we will be finished. And yeah, and I'm happy that I can show you our output in detail today. So the idea is that compared to the final conference or to other webinars, that today we will go really deep into the tool. I will show all the functions and the results. And also we choose a non-webinar type of event. So you can ask questions, you can interact with us, because I think it's crucial to answer questions right away. So it should be more an interactive event. But after I presented the tool, we have also a breakout session area where we can split into 2 groups. I will explain this later and discuss it in more detail. So we have 1 hour now for the tutorial and introduction presentation, and then we have 1 hour for the workshop. So most of you already know the project. This is why I keep the intro quite short. For us, the main goals today are, we want to showcase the tool, of course, the decision support tool and its functions and what it can do. And the second, I think, for us most like similarly important goal is to gather your feedback, your first impressions if you don't know it, or also your opinion about how the usability or the future application of the tool is for in your point of view. And then of course we want to create impulses towards our topics and to inspire, and also to invite you to get in touch with us to develop what we did further in the future, to create a new project out of different topics, out of the same topics. Just to get in touch with us, because after the February 28th, we are dedicated to other projects, and we are all willing to take this further, what we did in the last 3 years. So what is the agenda today? I will welcome and introduce the project very briefly. Then I will make a live presentation of the DST on our servers and show you the functions. I hope everything works fine. I hate live presentations. And then I will show you the potential results and potential uses of the DST. I prepared some overview presentation about this. And then we would split into breakout rooms after a short break to discuss or to gather your feedback. And then we meet together again at 1:45 to wrap up the day or the event. I can imagine we are a bit faster, so we don't stick too much to the timetable, but we'll see how it goes. Breakout rooms are 2. I expect around 15 participants to 20, and I think it's nice to split. We have a more intimate group to discuss. One is about the methodology and the algorithms. It's more like the technical, the scientific part of it, which is the background, the back end. And one is the application part, which is really the use of it. How can we implement it in municipalities? How does the data management work? And all these questions. We split also our team into groups. So for the moderation of the breakout room 1, the methodology, we have our methodology developers, and in the breakout room 2, we have the data management guys and the testers of the tool we had in the project. What is ERAdata? I will briefly go through it. ERAdata is a Horizon 2020 research project, and it was running from 2019 till now. So we got an extension granted for 2 months. And we started to operationalize the energy efficiency first principle on a local level, by like municipal level, regional level, by quantifying technical, economic, socioeconomic, and environmental variables for specific buildings. We are 9 partners, split in scientific partners, which is the DTU in Copenhagen, the TUM Technical University in Munich. We have also our programmers, ITTI in Poland. We have Xena as an energy agency who is also taking the scientific part, and Trilateral Research, who are responsible for all the data management. And then we have, and this is I think very particular in this project, we have 3 front-running municipalities and regions, which are more or less coordinated by CUAMA, by the Colegio de Arquitectos de Málaga, who are responsible for the testing strategy and developing also the data intake into the project data analysis tools. And then we have the city of Copenhagen, the city of Villena in Slovenia, and the region of Andalusia as practical partners to test and provide us feedback all the time. Why did we choose these practical partners? We wanted to reflect the 3 climate zones of Europe, like Scandinavia, Central European climate, and Mediterranean. And we also found that this was very useful to, especially for data collection, to create the right environments and to test us with the tool. We have one decision support tool, which is our outcome of the project. This is what I just mentioned. So what does it mean to operationalize the energy efficiency first principle on local level? For us, it's a broader justification for the energy efficiency investments. So we just want to provide motivation and arguments for municipalities, decision makers, policy makers. We didn't want to try to create a planning tool. We wanted to create arguments, political arguments, and also technical arguments that steer decisions. So we are before the planning phase. We want to show the potential of building, show the potential of certain measures, and also show that with certain measures you can increase well-being and health. So we focus least on energy savings. We focus more on the surrounding benefits that are triggered by building renovation and energy efficiency measures. Outputs, and I think this is interesting for all of you. So what we can offer you as well is that we have developed 5 methodologies. I will go into that in a minute. Then we created a kind of indicator parameter list, which shows what kind of properties, parameters do we need to calculate these 5 methodologies. We have quite an extensive data collection, and with different elements of building level, on generic level, European level, weather files, and so on. And of course, we have the decision support tool, which we're talking about today, and a database with default values, and finalizing the project with implementing guidelines, handbooks, and so on. We have 5 assessment modules. You see 6 here, but it's the data preparation, which we don't consider as a methodology, but it's kind of the most important part. And the first part is data preparation and collection. So municipalities or future users are asked to prepare data for the tool, of course, but the tool is able to run with a very limited amount of data. Of course, the more data you provide, the better the results will get, but we come to that. Then we have an energy demand and consumption module, which is kind of giving us the information how much energy the building is consuming, how much primary energy, final energy demand. That's based on the cubature of the building. And it's actually kind of the starting point for the most of what we did. But you're also able, and this is why I say the data preparation is kind of the umbrella, which is over all modules. So you can also override the calculations by just providing the output information. So you can integrate the real energy consumption, for example. Then the life cycle assessment is calculating the embedded and operational global warming potential of the building based on the materials and also on the building technology services, like on the heating system, on cooling system, and so on. This is the life cycle assessment over the building lifespan. Then we have the indoor climate assessment, which is evaluating the productivity effects, the well-being and health effects of people indoors. It's currently modeled for schools, but and integrated for schools only, but there is also extensions ready and available, but we didn't manage to integrate it in the running software at the moment. So it's actually evaluating the school indoor climate, and it gives you the productivity increase, for example, or sick days, a reduction of sick days, absenteeism of pupils and teachers, and it also transfers this information into monetary values, like taking, okay, in 10 years, how much money would you save because pupils and teachers are more productive and are less sick. Then we have the socioeconomic assessment, which is quantifying everything which is kind of around it. So the social CO2 emission cost, for example, how much is the CO2 emissions costing in a social aspect, or how many jobs can be created through this measure based on the investment which is taken, or the tax returns for the municipality, which are most often overseen. So how much tax returns can we expect from this investment, or particulate matter emissions, fuel poverty is also a topic which is kind of assessed there. And then we have the supply side assessment, which is kind of the counterpart, and it's not our main focus because we were here to focus on energy efficiency, but we needed this supply side as a correction factor for validating the impact. So here we look into what would be if we, instead of investing in energy efficiency, invest in supply side, in energy generation, like PV, on-site solar thermal integration, or wind energy, and so on. And we can compare this with payback rates, for example. What kind of data do we use? I mentioned it already. We have the real data. This is Raphael's work from Guama. So to collect all the data from municipalities and regions of the specific buildings, we developed multiple Excel sheets for that, which is kind of serving as our database. But if data is not available, we are able to override the information with default data, which is prepared for each region, to see, okay, if we don't have a specific building U value, we take the average U value for this building H. This is the plan for the data. This is a very, I think hard to see probably, but I just wanted to show the different elements. So we have the first part is the municipality, which is providing all the data. Then we have kind of a planning design stage in the tool in which we can integrate the buildings. We can select renovation measures and supply side measures, and also alternatives of that. So we can actually create multiple options to create scenarios. And then this information goes into the assessment, and we can select all calculation methods, but we can also select single ones. And the results then will be communicated, and we have them in exportable Excel sheets or bar charts in the reporting area. Then we have also the ERAdata databases. We call them like that. It's to import the data into the tool. This is the default data. The real data is coming from the municipality. And the default data is structured like this. We have regional data, which is of course preferable. So it's for our research, it was kind of the first strategy to go for regional data. If this is not available, then we jump one level higher to national data. We jump one level higher to EU data or scientific models at the very end, to be most closely to the real situation. The user flow, I think it's getting clearer, is very simple. So we collect the data first, transform it into our templates to upload it to the tool. And you will see this, like with the data that you provide, and you can actually generate a whole new tool for yourself. So this is, I think, the big advantage of what we developed, is that you can actually, by inputting data and also like properties which are not building related, you can actually create your own version of the tool. Then the creation of a project. So you have a project and you integrate buildings and measures into this project. You select the renovation measures, you select the calculation methods, and then you select also the topics that you want to have reported and exported in the end. Yeah, and then you export the results, and you can analyze the results further in Excel. And then you can also adjust. I mean, this is kind of the main idea is to create scenarios, to play around with parameters, to check what happens when I implement something on the building. What happens if I change elements of the building? So you can actually update the parameters, vice versa, after you calculate it, and recalculate. That's the idea. The tool architecture is consistent of, I think, 3 elements, and it's quite logic elements. So we have a central database on which all the data is stored. We have a backend application which has all the calculation libraries, data estimation module, which is kind of giving feedback if data is out of range or within range. We have an input function for building and other data. We have a data validation file. And then we have the front end, which is kind of the interface which you will use most of the time. And this consists of projects, which are kind of the actual working horses of the tool. So this is where everything happens. Then buildings, where you can import and export buildings, change buildings. We have parameters, where you can actually change every element of the tool itself. And we have information on the processing. I will go into that later. And then we have different user types, but I will show you this in real life in a second. I think important to know is, before we start with the tool itself, that the goal of the project was to develop something which is TRL5, so Technology Readiness Level 5. You will see that the tool that we present is kind of a mix of different TRLs. So I think the minimum we have is TRL5, which means we have it validated, so our methodology works and provides results. But in a lot of things like UX, and I think also the results and testing, we went a little bit further than that. So just to have in mind that some elements of the tool are not, we are not talking about a final product which is on the market. We're talking about a product which is functional and working, and it will help you. But some elements are still need to be improved for a more user-friendly experience, or also for to implement it in your municipalities. So this will be for all of us the next step to take what we have here into the next level. And I think this is important to know. But yeah, you will see by yourself. And also we are here to answer questions about the limitations and about the potential of the tool in the future. Yeah. So I will now show the tool itself. I'm happy if you ask questions. I will do it like the following. I will show you the different roles of users, and after each of these roles, I will make a short break to answer questions, so that we have a flow, but we have time also for answering questions. I hope this works now. So I will change my screen. Can you see the tool? Yes, it works. Okay, perfect. So we are already in the tool now. This is, you see, it's a browser-based software with a classic login. And when you log in, basically nothing is happening at the moment. But on the right side, you have, can you all see this, or is it too small? Is it good enough? It's good enough? Yeah, okay, if no objections are there. Okay, perfect. So we have actually the normal user, which is a user which is kind of, we tell them it's kind of the most practical user, the user who doesn't want to change building data, doesn't want to change the tool itself, but wants to use it to make scenarios and try things out. We have the expert user, which is the technology part of the team, who is actually uploading buildings, changing tool parameters, is able to change a lot of elements of the tool. And then we have the admin, who is basically not a technical person, but is able to provide the rights to the users to integrate new users, to change roles. As we have seen before in the presentation, here we have the front-end elements again: projects, buildings, parameters, processing, admin, help, and contact. And the normal user only has access to projects, help, and contact. Help is our guidebook, and contact is for bug reporting. So if you want to contact us after this presentation and you will use the tool, this is the way to report bugs or to get in contact with the team. And I can show you, it has quite, I would say, neat features. So you can actually even upload pictures, or you can indicate the cruciality or the concern type of the bug. But this is something, I think, if you want to try it, this is good. But we will start with the project. So if I click on the project button, you can see here I already created 3 projects. So everything in our tool is based on projects. You start with the project, and then to this project you assign buildings, you assign calculation methods, you assign renovation methods. That's actually the benefit, because you can share a project with your team colleagues, or you can work on multiple projects. So you can actually create multiple projects with multiple topics. We want to have a certain amount of buildings, like 10 buildings from our area, certified or tested on a certain energy level. Then we create a project for this certain energy level, and you can share this information and people can play around with it. So when project creation is easy, you give a project name and a project description. I did this already for this, for example. We have here the project name, and we have the description, which is for example, we want to test the LCA of this specific particular building. Down here, you see all the information, and it's only informative of data. So you can actually check if all the parameters that were integrated into this calculations, into this project, are correct. So if you find that some results are kind of off, or you don't know where the results are coming from, here is to check all the input data. So this is the details page. Then we can assign the buildings, like I said. So you can actually, very simple, go to the list of buildings. You type in, if you know already the buildings that you want to access. For example, we want to have some building from Copenhagen. And then we see here, okay, we want to have Endrupsvej as part of our project. We add it and it's there. That's very simple, I think. We have here our reference building. This is why I leave it like it is. You can also filter buildings or clear the list if it's too many buildings. Second element is we want to add the calculations. So for example, this is all the methodology elements that we discussed before. So we have the energy demand, energy supply, indoor environment, social economics, and then this dimension, but this is a second element of the energy demand. And then we have the LCA. And it's also working like this. We just select it and it will be calculated. One thing to know is if you have selected life cycle assessment, it's kind of, you see here, it's already depending on energy demand. So you don't have to select both because it will automatically calculate it. But you should be aware that when you have the results page, it shows only the parameters which are used to calculate LCA. But we will see this later. I will show you an example. Then also very important element is to add options, because at the moment we have our buildings there, and you see here we have already one option available. We call them options and not renovation measures because you can actually do everything you want. So you can also change the lodge or the ground surface area if you want to play around with cubature, for example. So you can take a building, you change the roof area. In some cases, it doesn't make sense, of course, but it's not necessarily a renovation. It can also be a change of building, or it can be a change of materials. Because, and I will show you later how you create your measures yourself, but you can change every parameter in the building to your needs and test what happens when you do it. So here we see the current status. This is status quo, the status before any option was applied. And now we can create a new option. I will call it webinar 3. It's our webinar. And we have a case study renovation package, so for example. Why package? Why not single option? Because each of these options contains measures. So we are starting with the kind of category over category, and this option contains measures. These measures we can select. And you see here already a list of measures that we created. This is kind of the test case measures. This is unlimited to extend, so you can actually create as many measures as you want, or you can, like now we have typical U values from different renovation standards, but you could go even more detailed and say, I want to have exactly what happens if I have exactly an exchange of windows with 0.9, or I have a new prototype window which is 0.6 U value. I want to test what happens then. You can create this. Before I add any measures, I want to show you the results. So at the moment, you see nothing happened so far. We have the status quo results here. That's it. If I now add measure, for example, and it's also interesting for you to know, maybe is you can always search for things, so you don't have to scroll everything. So we can put wall, and for example, now we say we want to add insulation to exterior walls, add it to the project. We can also check the measure. There's no description here, but if there would be a description, we could check it. Yeah, now we go to the results and we can run the calculation. You see up here, there's a bar getting full. I need to say for the calculation times, if you have one building and one measure, it's quite fast. If you have multiple buildings, it always doubles the time. So if I have 2 buildings, it's double the time than for one building. If it's 4 buildings, it's 4 times the time. But this is something that can be improved in the future, but it's at the moment like this. So I would say a 5 building calculation with this could take up to 15 minutes. Then if you have more calculation methods included, it can take some time, but that's to know. And when you know it, then you can handle it, I think. So now we have the results. You can see here. So I just selected life cycle assessment, but including in the life cycle assessment calculation, we need energy demand data. For example, let me see a good example here. So this is the before renovation state. We have specific primary energy demand, and it goes down because we added the insulated wall here on the right side. Here, yeah, oops, and here. You also see the global warming potential. You see here, this is already, it's still the technical elements, but this will be updated soon. So you can, then we have more explanations about the output variables. For now, I explain it to you, but I think it's also quite logic. So here we have the global warming potential for the operation of the building, and total means it's not a specific value, it's a total value, like for the whole building. We have also the global warming potential construction for a specific per square meter. And you can actually see, here, global warming potential operation specific. And you see that the global warming potential for the operation goes down. And also here you see it goes down to 3, I think it's gram CO2 or honestly, yeah. I hope I don't tell something wrong. And then we have the construction specific number, and it goes up. What does it mean? It means we add material to the building because of the renovation. So there's all the insulation materials which are put on the exterior wall. So you can basically see the effects on that. So the operational CO2 emissions go down. The embedded CO2 emissions, which are in the construction, go up. And yeah, I think energy demand is quite logic. Something I want to show you is now, this is the first, that was kind of the first scenario, but we want to add more. We want to add roof insulation in an ambitious level. We want to add basement insulation. We want to upgrade the windows, for example. We want to have a full renovation. We want to add mechanical ventilation as well, because it was not there before. We also want to add a new heating system. Let's stop here because I think that it takes more time. Oh, but we can do it. Heating system and also hot water. So we have really a full renovation. So what happens actually in the original building, we had district heating, non-renewable, and now we change it to biomass. We didn't have mechanical ventilation, and now we add mechanical ventilation. And for the insulation, I need to see, and you will see it. This is, I think, a very interesting aspect. The original building that we loaded in, the Copenhagen building, is already in a very good status. So the energy savings will be very small. But adding a new energy source will change the LCA tremendously. And I think this is what is important, that we're not only looking into the energy savings. They are kind of, for us, it's side effects to have energy savings. For us, the focus is on what happens with the rest of the building. And yeah, we run the calculation. Hope it doesn't take too long now. But if it does, I can show you also other elements. Questions so far? It's a good time for questions. No questions, and it's already calculated. But I have time still for questions. Do we have any questions from the audience so far?
Okay. Sebastian,
yeah.
there was a question in the chat. Someone asked that earlier when you were giving the presentation.
Ah, yeah. For health and well-being. Hi, Honorine. For health and well-being, actually, this is the indoor climate element. It's not directly well-being. I called it like this because we are evaluating the productivity, but it's based on multiple studies. I think Jörn, you can explain this better because Jörn is here and he developed the module.
Yeah, it's based on what we know about the relation between the indoor environment and how it affects pupils' learning performance. So there are some fairly well-established relations between temperature and learning and or performance, and between the carbon dioxide concentration and pupils' performance. So we use those in combination with some more not as well established knowledge about the relation with teachers' sickness absence and pupils' sickness absence. So these are the 4 factors that we take into account in the school module. Then we have for residential buildings, there's some other parameters there. Performance does not count as much. So it's more like what in terms of particle exposure and microbiology exposure to microbiology in the air. And then in offices, it's temperature and carbon dioxide. But as Sebastian also said, these other building types have not yet been implemented in the tool. Did that?
Thank you, Jörn.
Okay.
I think I don't hear anything, so I guess it's cleared. Good. I continue, and we can now we added a lot of other renovation measures, and you see here there's already the costs which are popping up. So we can see that we have now a renovation cost of 615,000 euros, which is based on the envelope improvements, exchange of windows, and adding of technical solutions. One would say this is a bit less for a building. This building has 6,500 square meters, but we are only considering the energy parts of the renovation. So scaffolding, or how we call it, like general works that had to be done, are not included in this price. So this is just, we want to know what happens, what benefit do we get for the energy part of the renovation. And we see here, and there's a few interesting aspects now. For example, here the CO2 emissions were reduced tremendously, but now we are from 125,000 kilogram. I don't know honestly the exact. It's gram, right?
Where exactly? Which number?
No, the global warming operation total.
No, that's fine.
No, but just what is the unit?
Kilograms, CO2 equivalents per year.
Exactly. That's what I want to know. If it's kilogram or gram. No, but yeah, it's kilogram, and you see it's reduced to 27,000 kilogram. So it's quite a humongous reduction, about 80%, I think. And also in the specific, I think it's better to see it in the specific global warming potential. If we go from 21 kilogram to 4 kilogram. And you see also that when we look at the specific energy demand heating, that we didn't generate a lot of reduction here. No, instead we actually created an increase of reduction. And this is interesting because we changed the energy source, which means we had a very good performing building already. Now we have investment in the envelope improvement, which created a small reduction of energy consumption. But by adding the biomass as a less efficient technology, we actually have more energy consumption than before. But we have a huge reduction of CO2 emissions. And also we have the mechanical ventilation and included. So this is explaining the extra in energy consumption. And this is something that I think is very interesting to see. in this case, we could give the recommendation. We don't focus on the envelope of the building, but we are focusing only on the energy source change, on the heating system change, because it actually provides a lot of benefits. And the building itself is performing already quite well. So why should we invest a lot in the envelope? So yeah, this is kind of the take-home messages, and this is the results for now. I will go back to another project I prepared, because in this project, we have more calculations that had been done, and this takes more time, so I kind of pre-calculated it. The options are the same as before. We can see it here. We have insulation there, we have the windows upgrade, mechanical ventilation, heating system, and so on. And when we look into the results, and I need to apologize, it's a little bit mixed, so it's not easy, but you can actually sort the different calculations, so you can see the results. And you can see here, this is the socioeconomic module, and it uses the information coming from the energy demand and LCA module and adds costs to that. So you see here that we have the CO2 cost savings. You see here, this is the CO2 cost before the renovation, which is 3,760 euros per year, CO2 tax cost, and now we have it reduced to 857 euros per year. Same goes for emission trading costs or social costs. Here's the final value, which is the social CO2 cost savings, which is 12,000 euros per year, because we have such a high CO2 reduction, CO2 emission reduction. There's other elements like, for example, the number of jobs which are created. You see here we have the number of direct jobs which are created locally are 4 FTE per year. I wouldn't go into the detail how this is calculated. I can just recommend to read. We have a deliverable 3.4, which is public, and you can see all the assumptions, all the calculation basis for this, how these results are created, because I think this is, yeah, this is important. Then for example, here we have the income tax return, which is 16,000 euros for the investment, for the 615,000 euros of the project costs. And if it would be a residential building, we could see also how the fuel poverty percentage, like this is 3.7% changes before and after the renovation. So there's a few of these things. I invite you to play around with it when you can test it. What else do we have here? Also, for example, the reduced particulate matter emissions. It's interesting, you see here that due to the increase of energy use, we also have a negative reduction of particulate matter because we use more energy. And also biomass is not a good source for particulate matter. So it's included that it's biomass and wood burning probably. So having nuclear power would be a bit better here, for example, but we don't have nuclear power at the tool. Yes, and you see here again, this is interesting. I didn't select the energy demand as a module, but it shows me all the values that are necessary to calculate the socioeconomic elements. So you see here, this is kind of a pre-selection of the tool itself. So it just shows the results that are needed to calculate the selected calculations. The indoor climate module, we had some issues with the names here. I think I can show you the results in a presentation later, in which I have them sorted, basically. This should be fixed very soon. Yeah, that's that problem with live presentations. But it's but we have the results, and I will show it to you. Yeah, that's basically the first run through through the normal project page. We don't have so much time, but I will go through the other elements because I think they're very interesting, especially for technical listeners. So when we go to the expert mode, and this is now interesting, we have actually the same view than before for projects. So you can actually do the same like a normal user. You just have the same results, you have the same options. You have also the option to download the results. Actually, the normal user can download it as well. Sorry, I forgot this before. So if you actually download, click download, you can export all the results into an Excel file. And we just open it, 1 second. So here, that's just making it up here. I'm zooming in a bit. So here you can see all the results properties. And then you can see the reference building renovation package, so the renovation results, and you can see the status quo results. You see some of these results are not there because in the status quo we didn't create any savings. So this is empty. Yeah, but this is a way to export, and then you can also process information further to what you need it for. This is the idea. But going back to the tool itself. So now we leave the project and calculation and application side aside, and we go into the interesting elements as well. So first tab here is buildings, and this is the section where you can upload and manage the buildings. So you can see here all the buildings which are integrated in the tool. You can select them. You see the external ID where it is placed, the name, and like in this case, the address. You can see the properties of the building. So we can really go through all the information. You see there's a lot of building properties are not filled, but I think this is normal because we have around 400 properties in the tool and a lot of properties for buildings itself. And it's not supposed to be filled for each building that you have to. So you don't need to fill each element to make the calculation running, because for the most elements, we have default values doing the job. But of course, the more information you put in, the more it can be specific to the location or the building that you want to have to assess. For example, if you know the percentage of boiler gas heating for the building, you can put it in. If you don't have it, we go with the average. This is how it works. And you can add, you can see, okay, what purpose has the building? It's an hospital. Okay, I'll add this. And also you can assign the building to the project from this side. So if you are the expert user, you can say, okay, I have a new building. I want to assign it to 5 projects simultaneously, so I can do it from the building tab. Yes, and there's even a more convenient way to do this. I just need to reload it. A second. You have an expert function, so you can actually create out of this parameter list, you can create an Excel file. You can download the Excel file, and you can see here you can download it, and then you fill it. I prepared a little bit the Excel file, otherwise it would take too long. So this is actually the Excel file I just downloaded, and you can see here all the buildings of that are currently integrated in the tool, and you can see here the different parameters. They are not sorted yet, but you can sort them. It's Excel, so you can sort them. And you can put in information. So you can see this is the roof area. I want to put in the roof area. Outer temperature, percentage of heat pumps, the window height, window width. If you don't have the information, you put the window to wall ratio or window to floor ratio, and the tool does the rest. So that's the idea. That building area. And then so you can actually maintain this template for yourself, for your municipality, your building stock, and then you just upload it like it is to the tool, and all the buildings are automatically integrated. You can also change, so this can be basically your database, can be this Excel file. Going back to the tool, not to losing too much time, and then you upload it, and then it's here, and then you can use it in your projects. Yeah, that's the buildings. Then we have parameters, and it's basically the same thing. So you can download all the parameters which are in the project. And you see here, there's not only building parameters, but they have also, we call them ERAdata parameters, which are information like how many hours do the people work. And it's important for the indoor climate module to calculate the monetary benefits. What is the average hourly salary? What is the discount rate you want to use? Or what is the years of labor in your country or in your area? Or you can really go to very much detail, saying, okay, what is the typical CO2, embedded CO2 for concrete? What is the global warming potential for gas? So you can actually go through all these elements and change them. And the interesting thing is you can download these properties, change them for your location. So you say, I want to, now we have 5 servers online. We have a server for Poland, for Spain, for Denmark, Slovenia, Germany. But in the future, if you're in Finland and you want to do it for Helsinki and you want to have your very specific outputs, you go through this list and you put in all the information that are very specific for Helsinki. You store this Excel and you upload it, and then the whole tool will be adjusted. So I think this is one of the big benefits of this solution, is that you can adjust the whole software to your location anytime. And it's kind of a long list of properties, but it's done. If it's done once, it's adjusted, and then it can also be maintained. And each building, you can also define here. You can define the default values, and each building that you upload is kind of overriding these defaults. So if you upload it here and you say, I want, I don't know, the U-value roof is always 0.3, then if the building doesn't have this information, it stays 0.3. If the building has the information, it will override. Yeah, this is how the properties work. Then we have outputs, which is kind of the information of what is the results of each of the calculation measures. We can go here and then you see also here we have a lot of interim results, which means they are not meant to be shared with the normal user. They are just there for like proving the calculations, validate the calculations. But the expert user can indicate if they want to have them seen in the results list or not, like here with the building variable visible list button. You can actually adjust it, and you can also kind of adapt the results list for your needs. And you can also go through, see the units here. Then we have the location. The location at the moment is not, has no influence. It's informative. It was planned and it will be planned for the future to connect this information with parameters like weather data or climate data. So you actually put in the information where the building is located, then the tool does it by itself. But it's, like I said, it's TRL5, so we didn't went that far to connect this. But this could be an option for the future. For now, it's an informative button, but I think we have the place here to integrate locations. The same goes for the purposes. So now we have the different building purposes. The future could be that it automatically changed default values when you select a certain purpose, or you have different outcomes for a certain purpose. For now, it's done by the building template, so you upload it by yourself, but it could be that it in the future automatically does it. This is something for the next iteration, but it's here already. The same goes for the calculation type. I always saw this as a kind of API of the tool, so you can in the future maybe integrate new calculation methods into the tool or connect it with other calculation methods. Like I said, this is kind of, it's there already, but it's not, there's nothing implemented yet in this regard. Important to end this, our last important part is the renovation measures. And I will just show it by adding one. So this is the list we saw before. And now I can add a new renovation measure. Let's say test, surprise, surprise. And it's the external wall we want to do. So we have, we want to change the U value of the external wall by putting insulation. I'm using the external wall surface area. Why do I do that? Because I want to add the cost. So I can actually use the unit, or select the unit I want to have the cost for, and then add the cost. So now I have 50 euros per square meter external wall surface area, and it calculates the cost. You can also do this by, I don't know, roof surface area, or you just change, or you say I want to have the cost for the percentage of heating system, heating source. So you're actually free to do what you want. Then we have the description here, save it, and we have a measure added. Then, and this is important, you need to define, for this particular measure, you need to define what properties should it actually change, because we didn't define this yet. So if we want to change the heating system, for example, and we know that the buildings in my quarter have a district heating, non-renewable district heating, then I have here the percentage district heating non-renewable. This is at the moment at 100%, which means is I need to change it to 0. this is a little bit complicated, but it's the way how it's done. I think it's important to show it to you. And then if you want to have biomass integrated in the heating of the building, for example, you go with the percentage biomass heating, you add it, and you put the value 1 or 100. And then this is kind of the new standard, and you changed it. So we can actually go back and say, okay, we didn't make a test, we changed the heating system to biomass. This is our measure. And the cool thing is that in this kind of change, you can actually select all the parameters we had before. You should not touch the ERAdata parameters, but the building parameters. When they are changed, you can actually change every bit of it. Yes, and then you can assign it to an option that we created before in the project list, or you can let the user assign it. That's it, and we have a new defined measure. This measure is stored there, and the normal user can select it. Yes, that's to the parameters, and then the last bit is the processing, where you can see all the 5 calculation units again. It's more an informative thing. You see what inputs are actually used in each of these calculations. You can see to which project are they assigned, and also the output variables that are part of this calculation measures. Then, as I said, we have the help, which gives you the handbook. It opens the handbook. I don't need to do this. And we have the contact button, which is providing you the bug reporting. Yes, that's our tool. I'm just jumping back to the presentation. Questions so far? I mean, we have the breakout sessions afterwards, where we can solve a lot of more questions in detail. I'm a little bit delayed, but I think it's important to have time, because every question is asked now, it's not asked later, so I think it's good and now it's fresh. So any questions? Any input from the team? Something I missed? A lot of information. But it's recorded, I can say. So we take this as a tutorial, so I'm happy if you also check it out later again. I think I kind of covered almost everything. There's, of course, a lot of details that are not covered yet, but we are available to answer these questions also after this event. I'm just briefly jumping to the results in a more sorted manner. Just the case study building again. Like we have this multi-use building located in Savinska, Slovenia. This is kind of the case study building we took, and then we put it to different places to show how it works. It's a school, and before renovation ventilation was done, the window opening, we had non-renewable district heating. And as I said, it's already in a good shape. But we wanted to try what our tool can do, and we applied additional renovation measures, like insulation. I think you've seen this before. This is exactly what I did before. We have also the energy supply, where we tried, we install photovoltaic panels on it, we construct a PV farm. What would happen if we do this? This is the if-when approach we took. We applied it in 3 different locations. So we have it in Malaga, Copenhagen, Berlin. You see that outer temperatures are quite changing. So Malaga's average temperature is quite high. Lowest temperature is never below 0. Copenhagen is different. And Belenia is even more different, being in a country on the mountains and having quite a, how do you say, Central European climate. And I'm just flipping through it. You can see it later on. I think it also explained a lot of it. So the specific final energy demand changed in each of these areas. And you see that the heating demand in Malaga is quite low. The heating demand in Copenhagen is quite high, same in Slovenia, but it doesn't change so much after renovation. This is because the preliminary situation of the building was very good. So now we have even more energy consumption because of the low efficiency of the biomass and also because we added ventilation. Then if we go for the primary energy demand, it's the same or similar, but it's getting very interesting when we look into the CO2 emissions, and you can see that in the countries that had a lot of energy consumption before, we reduce a lot the CO2 emissions. So we have a total global warming potential saving of 86%. And then, yeah, you see this here also for, and the savings, yeah, no, that's six, yeah. The same goes for the indoor environment. It's you see this by adding the mechanical ventilation system, we actually could reduce the times of people being in bad categories, CO2 categories, when we look into CO2 concentration, from quite distributed. So we have, you see here, down here, we see the different CO2 categories. And the red one is kind of a really bad CO2 concentration category. I don't know how it's exactly the range, but it's usually, we should not be in there. But by adding the mechanical ventilation system, we actually can create a very good CO2 concentration throughout the day, and the pupils and teachers are within this environment after the renovation. This applies to all countries. Of course, this changes a little bit when we look into the indoor climate, indoor temperature, because in Spain it's constantly a little hot, especially in summer, and you see that it's hard to get it really down to what the goal is. But in Copenhagen, it works. This works pretty fine in Slovenia as well. So the CO2 concentration is no issue. The indoor environment, yes, and it's also because we didn't add cooling systems in this example. So I think if you would add cooling systems or air conditioning, this would be much different. Yeah, you correct me if I say something wrong, right?
There's nothing wrong in that. It was a good
okay.
description.
Then, yeah, you can also see we calculated the budget or the monetary effects, and this you see on the y-axis. We have the million euros, and if we added, you see here the different colors. So blue means the less pupil sickness absence creates around 2.5 million euros revenue, or 2 million revenue in Copenhagen. The higher learning performance of pupils also creates kind of a revenue of 2 million. And then you see also the increased learning due to less sickness absence creates even like 500,000 of revenue. And this is what you can see here. The socioeconomic assessment, so we have the energy cost reduction. This is not really beneficial because we have more energy consumption than before, which means we need to pay more. You see also I adjusted the residential bar already to the current energy prices. Yeah, this is what happens. And also that in Spain, you pay much, or this is what my data said, you pay much more for residential energy than for industrial energy or office energy. This is in general the case. So we assume that as a residential building owner, you pay more. And also you have more energy consumption than usually planned. Then the CO2 cost savings, we distinguish between 3 levels. One is social CO2 costs, one is the tax costs, and the ETS costs. For the ETS cost savings, you can see that it's always the same because it's a European number and it's the current value. So we made a kind of average of the last months of the European emission trading system. Then we have the tax costs, which are the current tax costs in each country. You see it varies depending on the location. The cool thing is that almost all countries already have a tax system. Germany was far behind. So we just got our tax, I think last year. But you see here, this is considered. And then the social CO2 cost savings, this is a factor we created, and it's mix of kind of what would be the real costs that these CO2 emissions actually ask for. It's based on multiple models and scientific studies. So it's also including the Stern report and others, and evaluating this. What is the real damage of the CO2 emissions? It's still a very low number, I need to say. We were very conservative with the social CO2 cost, but it's of course much higher than the others. So this is kind of what does the society save? Then we have the reduced unemployment spending. You saw it before. We calculated the number of jobs that are created, and of course you can also calculate the unemployment spending that are reduced because of that. Then we have the supply side, where you see like, okay, how much of the status quo energy consumption can be covered by supply side measures like PVs in this case. We have different solutions, so we can have the PV, we can have wind farms, we can have other solutions, and then we can compare the payback periods. So saying, okay, investing in a wind farm reduces the payback period of this, and investing in photovoltaics, it also creates such a certain amount of payback time, and we can compare this to the payback time of the energy efficiency side. Just a comparison, I think this is a very rough overview over the payback periods, and I think this gives exactly a very interesting, I mean, this is what I mention all the time, it gives a very interesting output on, yeah, what we want to assess and what is assessed by the software. For example, if we have no benefits, no other benefits than just energy savings included in our calculations, we have a payback period of 1,173 years, or even more, because we don't have energy savings. That's the interesting thing, because with our renovation, fake renovation, we don't have any energy savings. But when we start with including benefits like sick days, or the tax returns, or the increase of teachers' performance, reduction of CO2 emission costs, and I just took the ones that are important for the municipality, we can reduce the payback period to 38 years. And just imagine, this is including measures that were not necessary because the performance was already good. So we have a quite long payback period, but it was without any energy savings. So if you take the energy savings aside or the envelope improvement, then we have a much lower payback period. And if we include social or societal benefits, like improved performance, job creation, which is not directly influencing the budget of the municipality, but of the region, and also including the real costs of CO2 emissions or the reduction of unemployment expenses, then we can reduce the payback time to 1.2 years. So I think this is the takeaway message, and this is also the thing that you can play around with a tool. So what would be if we would have a really bad performing building and we apply all these renovation measures? Then the payback periods would be maybe half of what we have here.